Nicolas
I
motherfucking
am
Cage.
Dracula.
Movies come in many different categories, many different varieties. Even movies in the same genre can differ wildly from each other. You could say that no two movies are exactly the same, so every movie probably needs something different to make it work. A different formula, a different kind of secret sauce to bring out the best in it. Sometimes it might need a compelling mystery, other times it might need a good romance or an accurate depiction of a video game it's adapting. And sometimes, all a movie might need is a batshit crazy Nicolas Cage performance.
Let's eat.
Let me tell you guys something. There was a time in the mid-90s to early 2000s when Nicolas Cage was my favorite actor. This movie reminded me why. And not because he disappeared into the role or because he's doing some mind-blowing character work or anything like that. No, because they just unhooked the leash and let him be as insane as he wants to be. And it's glorious. Nicholas Hoult may be the lead of this movie, but Nick Cage is the star. He is so entertaining in this thing. He's funny, he's magnetic, he's over the top. There are scenes where he's acting through heavy makeup prosthetics and he just embraces the wackiness of it. It's classic Nick Cage. The man is chewing every molecule of scenery within 100 yards of him, and if there's one character you ought to be able to do that with, it's Dracula. And considering how much he runs away with the whole movie, I'm actually pretty impressed with how they saved him for the big reveal at the end of the first trailer, with the rest of it being about setting up the premise of the film. I respect them for showing some restraint on that, although in hindsight, it might have been a mistake, because the trailer may have misrepresented what kind of movie this is. They tried to make it look like a dark comedy, but it's really more of a horror comedy, and there's a difference. By that I mean bloody, gory, rip a dude's arm off and stab him to death with it kind of stuff. Which is weird, because with a couple of tweaks, this could have easily been a PG-13 flick, and it might have played better as one, considering the framing device they used. It's basically about Renfield trying to end the business arrangement that him and Dracula have had for a long time, and this is used as a comedic metaphor for being trapped in a toxic relationship. And that might seem kinda goofy on paper, and it is, but the movie is very aware of that. It knows what it's doing here. It never takes itself too seriously, but it also knows when to dial back on the goofiness and inject some horror or some action back into it. So tonally, it's pretty consistent. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, toxic relationships? Well, they must have just loaded the whole thing up with gay subtext because that's one of Hollywood's go-tos these days. They just made Dracula and Renfield a gay couple, didn't they? They didn't. There's none of that. No politics here. In fact, my reading was that it's really a social commentary on work relationships and dealing with a boss who's just a dick. If you've ever had a job where you had to deal with an asshole boss who overworked you all the time, or made tons of crazy demands, or took advantage of you, or wouldn't pay you what he owed you, or whatever. If you've ever been in a situation like that with a boss you just could not stand, I have, long story, you're gonna find this film very relatable and cathartic. There were a bunch of scenes in this thing where I was like, oh yeah, Renfield, I feel your pain, bro. I've been there. I know what that's like. Just get out, buddy. Get the hell out of there, man. You don't need this shit. They really got me to sympathize with this guy, which is not an easy thing for a character who's done so much bad stuff. It's a movie about a boss who's sucked all the happiness and self-esteem out of his employee, and the employee learning how to get that back, how to reconcile all the mistakes he made working this job, and finally stand up to his boss. It just so happens that the boss is Dracula. It's actually a pretty clever metaphor. Not that it's all about that stuff. It's still a vampire movie, so we have to pay Dracula a certain amount of lip service, and the movie starts with this very cool sequence where they insert Nick Hoult and Nick Cage into Universal's Dracula movie from the 1930s. They recreate a whole sequence from that film and try to make it look like the same movie, just with the new actors. It's really well done, too. I was hoping the whole thing would be full of stuff like that, but sadly it's not, because I guess they were on a budget. Really creative way to start the movie, though. The budget was something I wondered about, however, because for what is sort of an action movie, or a horror-y with action in it, there are no really big set pieces here. Bars, warehouses, abandoned buildings, restaurants, an apartment complex, stuff like that. And for a movie that's trying really hard to not break the bank, the action scenes are surprisingly good, they're just on a fairly small scale. Where the budget did limit them, I think, is with the story. I wouldn't say the story is missing anything necessarily, but it's very streamlined. They could have added more to this. Maybe given us more of Dracula, more flashbacks in the style of other old school vampire movies, because we find out that Renfield has been doing this job for a really long time. So maybe they could have shown us more of that in other sequences that looked like vampire films from other time periods and stuff. That would have been so cool, but it's just not in there. Also, there was a tease with Dracula and this female crime boss, some kind of weird, creepy chemistry they have together, and you think there might be a subplot where they explore this and do something with it, and I was down for that too, but then nothing happens. And weirdest of all, the movie takes place in New Orleans, and there's no Mardi Gras sequence. Just imagine what you could do with Dracula at f***ing Mardi Gras! That's such low-hanging fruit, how do you leave that out? God damn it, there was potential to do a lot more with this, but maybe they just didn't have the money to do more. Beats me what the budget was, but it couldn't have been that high. I'm bummed out by the movie this could have been, and the story has the essential things it needs, so you don't really miss that other stuff, and they made good use of what they do have, but I think there would have been a lot to be gained by springing for all those other bells and whistles. That being said, since it appears to be fairly cheap, it's a good enough film that it should stand a decent chance of making its money back unless it completely tanks. Unfortunately, I expect it's gonna get crushed by Super Mario Bros. I don't know why on earth they didn't release this thing in October. A horror comedy about Dracula dropping in April? Makes no sense, and that's absolutely gonna hurt them, which sucks because this is a fun movie. The social commentary is entertaining, the action is pretty well done, you've got Nicolas Cage being as zany as he wants to be in a role that's tailored perfectly for that. Even if the budget did prevent the movie from being everything it could have been, there's still some good stuff in here. Not surprising because, and I didn't realize this until I saw it, it's from a story by Robert Kirkman, the guy who created Invincible, also The Walking Dead, but f***ing Invincible! Hell yeah! Why didn't they play it up more that he was involved in this? I think Renfield will end up slipping under a lot of people's radar, and it shouldn't. I had fun with this movie, and I think more people would enjoy it if they gave it a chance. This is worth at least a matinee. If you're going to the theater for a second or third watch of Super Mario Bros., maybe make it a double feature. I mean, leave the kids at home for this one, yeah, but if you're in the mood for a bloody good time, Renfield just might surprise you. Thanks so much for watching, and while you're here, please do all the other YouTube things. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media to be notified when I upload new stuff. The links are down there. And most importantly, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to have its arm ripped off and be stabbed to death with it by a batshit crazy vampire Nicolas Cage is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more real soon, so take care, stay tuned, I'll see you next time.